Perfect. Okay. Now, in the overview of the bacterial translation. Okay. So if we look at this picture, it is telling us all the details of translation. So let me illustrate one after another because it is pretty basic. It's not that much complicated here. So let me change the color first. Let me take the black color, black color for this explanation. Okay, now you can see at the very beginning we need to arrange the ribosome, because in this total process of bacterial translation, because here we are talking about bacterial translation. Now in this process we are talking about mainly uh, four stages of translation. Initiation, name suggests all, initiate of the translation. Then the elongation phase, or carrying out the polypeptide synthesis. Third thing is the release phase, because in the initiation phase we need to recombine and arrange our ribosomal subunit for the perfect assembly so that it can carry out the translation. Then we need to elongate the polypeptide chain. Once we elongate the polypeptide chain, we need to again dissociate all those subunits, because we need to recycle. So here comes the recycling, and the fourth part of the bacterial translation. So there are four stages: initiation, elongation, release, and recycle. So these are sequential. Remember, initiation should be first, elongation should be second, release should be third, and recycling should be fourth. Now recycling stage is important, because otherwise for the if it is not recycled, then for the next round cannot be possible. Now you can see also the elongation stage is a cycler stage, because it is cycled through this process. Now, at the very beginning of initiation stage, what happens? 30th subunits come in, and along with that, there are some factors called the initiation factors. Now, remember, in each stage of initiation, elongation, or release, there are factors which are associated. Factors are called initiation factor, elongation factor, and release factor accordingly. Now, initiation factors, here are three different type of initiation factor: IF1, IF2, and IF3, that will come. And at the beginning, what we can see at the very beginning, this 30th subunit is having IF3 attached and bound to it, as you can see in this picture. Now this is important, because this IF3 start to bind with the uh, A site of this 30th subunit. Otherwise, if this 30th subunit plays as it is inside the cell, many tRNA molecule can come and bind with it. So to block the tRNA molecule to come and bind with this 30th subunit, it will attach to the IF3, so that it blocks this region for the attachment. Okay, so the A site is blocked previously, but when it gets the signal for the translation, this IF3 is getting released. Then again, everything will bind. IF3, IF1, and IF2 will come and bind with the 30th subunit. Now when all of them will bound to the 30th subunit along with mRNA sequence. So here comes the mRNA, because this is the code which is need to be translated, right? So now mRNA is placed in between this 30th along with IF1, IF2, and IF3. It makes the pre-initiation complex. Now after that, it needs to form the attachment with this 50th subunit. Now here comes the larger subunit. You can see here the larger subunit is free from any kind of initiation factor. So the pre-initiation complex is only between 30th and different initiation factors, and also mRNA. So if they ask what is pre-initiation complex, that is only this part. Okay, now the 50th RNA just come and bind with this 30th rest of the subunit, and then it forms what is called a translational complex. Now as this translation complex is formed, it just shifts to the elongation stage and start to synthesize protein. Now once after binding of this 50th subunit, it also bind with GTP. Now during this translation process, GTP plays very important role, because in this case we won't be seeing ATP, because most of the proteins that are, most of the initiation factors, elongation factors, and release factors that we're talking about are typical GTPase proteins, right? So here GTP will come along with 50th subunit, they will bind, and GTP is getting hydrolyzed. As a result of this GTP hydrolysis, initiation factors will dissociate from the place. So IF1, 2, 3 are dissociated, and then new tRNA will come and bind with this sequence. So here it is. Remember, I have forgot to mention, the very beginning of the initiation complex, there is an initiator tRNA that will bind to the P site of this particular 30th subunit. Now remember, this IF3 blocked the A site, and exit site is always free, because exit site will be the last part of it. So all the initiation factors are fulfilling and blocking the A site and E site of this 30th subunit, but the P site is the only free site then for binding of tRNA. So for that reason here, the one initiated tRNA or the first tRNA is going to bind with this particular P site. Now it sits onto the place, but after that, when it transfer to the elongation stage, after the GTPase activity, a new tRNA, which is called the charged or amino acyl tRNA, will come in. Right. Now remember, in this case, this concept of initiated tRNA is very, very important, because someone need to initiate the process of translation, otherwise it won't be happening. So for this initiation, usually for the prokaryotic system, this tRNA that we get here is called the formyl methionine tRNA or F-MET tRNA. But for other eukaryotic systems and for mitochondrial translation, that is completely different. But mostly for the bacterial cell, it is mainly uh, the F-MET or methionine amino acid containing tRNA. Okay, now here it comes, and then the second and the first RNA having an amino acid sequence start to emerge, and that is called the this is called the first type of, it is carrying the amino acid. So it is called the amino acyl tRNA. Right. Now AA tRNA or amino acyl tRNA along with EF2. EF means elongation factor. Here comes the role of elongation factors. Elongation factor like EF2 will bring amino acyl tRNA onto the place according to this choice, right? So it randomly brings this tRNA. Here is it's very, very important. It randomly brings this tRNA and will scan for whether the mRNA that they are looking at here is having the exact code for. Suppose it is carrying amino acid sequence, say glycine, but here the code which is present in mRNA is not for glycine, it's for alanine. So it will be released, and those tRNA having alanine amino acid will come and bind with this place. So it's simply scanning the part and only incorporating the right number and right type of uh, amino acid sequences carried by tRNA. So here it will come and bind with this uh, A region, right? So here comes the amino acyl tRNA bind with the A region, because P is already occupied with the initiator tRNA molecule. Now here it comes. After its attachment, it attaches slightly tilted way like this. So it attaches slightly tilted way like this, carrying an angle of 60 degrees or 45 degree like that. After that, what it will done, this EF2 will be released. Now this EF2 is the helper type of elongation factor, which which is needed for the carrying of the amino acyl tRNA. So once it is bound in this uh, angle, in this 45 to 60 degree angle, this EF2 is released, and then after that, release of EF2 using GTP hydrolysis again trigger a conformational change. Due to this conformational change, this amino acyl tRNA, which is previously tilted, now it is become straight. You can see here, now it's become straight. Now what we get, now we get the initiator tRNA. Right beside that, we are having this particular amino acyl tRNA. So they are placed just like that parallelly. Once they are placed in this orientation, then they start the peptidyl transferase activity. So now you can see, once after the beginning of this arrangement, once it is tilted, the distance between this amino acyl tRNA and the first initiated tRNA is more, so the peptidyl transferase activity cannot be achieved. So for the achieving of the peptidyl transferase activity, we need to make it stand very closer. So now after this reorientation, or what we call the accommodation event, it is called the accommodation, right? Now due to this accommodation, we are having, or we have brought both of this tRNA in close proximity so that peptidyl transfer occur efficiently. Now after that, peptide chain, as you can see here, this is the peptide chain. It will be transferred from this initiated tRNA onto the first, what you can say, onto this amino acyl tRNA. Now after this peptidyl transfer, how this transfer is done, we'll be seeing the mechanism in detail. Now this peptidyl transfer event is done, so this part we'll be studying in detail again. After that, what need to be done, it needs to to form this hybrid state. So now we are having amino acyl tRNA having two different amino acid sequences, because the initiator mRNA is having a particular amino acid. Now this amino acyl tRNA is having a particular amino acid. So now two amino acids are joined and they are held together by this amino acyl tRNA. After that, another type of elongation factor comes in, and that is called EFG. Now this factor will come and bind with this uh, factor binding region. So there are also regions in ribosome which binds with this different type of ribosome translation factors. Okay, once it bound, also it comes with GTP. So GTP will be hydrolyzed. After the GTP hydrolysis, all of this structure is have a rat shifting movement. So it is a movement, kind of shaky movement. The only this 30 unit, This bottom part is 30s subunit, and top part is the 50s subunit. If you can see, this 30th subunit is simply having a rotation, slight rotation like that. Due to this slight rotation of movement, this total sequences of tRNA will shift one window at a time. Now we are having three window, E, P and A. So previously which is present in P will be moved to E, and which is present in A will be moved to P. So now this amino acid tRNA previously placed in here, you can see it is placed in A, and the initiator tRNA placed in P. But now due to this shifting movement, here in this case, this green one or the initiator one moves to exit site, and it is getting disoriented, and this amino acid tRNA will be placed in the peptidyl transferase or P site. So this is the movement. So this type of movement is done. After that, GTP hydrolysis will be done and EFG protein will be released outside. So this is how the whole process of elongation starts to work out. Now again, another amino acid tRNA will be coming in and they will be attached. Then accommodation will be done. Then the transfer of peptide sequences from this P site to the amino tRNA present in A site. Then again this movement. So these are the three steps: accommodation, transfer activity, and the movement, and then the dissociation of EFG. That's how the whole process works. Now you can see what is the importance of EFG and EFTU for this process, because for the carrying of amino acid tRNA, it is conducted by EFTU or elongation factor TU, and obviously the dissociation of this factor and also translocation of one window apart is carried out by this or helped by this EFG or elongation factor G. Okay, so here it is. After that, elongation is done. When you need to terminate the process, there are some factors called release factor, because it is called the release or termination of the translation. Now the release factor of three type: release factor 1, 2 and release factor 3. Now either kind of release factor 1 or 2 can come and bind. Now this release factor 1 or 2, it actually mimics the structure of a tRNA in such a way so that it will bind to the A site. Now it will bind to the A site, it will recognize the stop codon. Now as this release factor will bind at this particular site of stop codon, so it won't let any other amino acid sequence carrying tRNA to bind with this site. As a result, it will no longer elongate the process. Now once it is blocked to this particular portion, hydrolysis take place for this polypeptide chain, because until now we have grown the polypeptide chain a little bit long amount due to this elongation stages, but now we need to cleave this chain so that we get the protein. Now during this process, hydrolysis of this newly polypeptide chain is done, and after this hydrolysis, this complex remains same. So proteins are released as a chain. Now remember, this is very important. The protein sequence that are getting released, the polypeptide chain that are getting released, are definitely going to be linear. During this process, this protein sequence never folds, right? Protein folding never done simultaneously with this process of translation during the synthesis of protein, because if you look at this picture, you can see this tunnel or exit channel, which is very narrow, and it can only occupy a single thread and single line of amino acid sequence. So if the amino acid sequence are bend and fold in 3D structure, this will clog these channels. For that reason, protein folding cannot be accomplished during this translation onto this ribosomal subunits. So it must be done after the translation, right? Okay, so now after releasing of the new protein sequence, what we get is a complex of 30 and 50s. Now in this case, another type of release factor, which is called release factor 3, which will come in and bind with this specific regions binding. Now previously bound factor of release factor 1 and 2 is also present, and release factor 2 is there. It will dissociate and it will destabilize the complex, and it will also bring some GTP here, right? Because this RF3, now remember, this RF1 or RF2, whatever comes in, it will come in with a GDP molecule. Now once RF3 comes in, it will bring GTP in the place. So GTP will replace the GDP that was present previously, and then the GTP hydrolysis will be done. After this GDP hydrolysis, all the structures are getting very much disintegrated, and it will kick all this releasing factor outside. As a result of kicking this releasing factor outside, we only left up with 30s subunit, 50s subunit, 30s subunit mRNA, and the initiator tRNA that is placed in this particular site. Now after that, they will also be released due to binding of another factor called RRF, or ribosome recycling factor. Now this is the final factor which will help to dissociate all the subunit of ribosome so that we can carry out this process again and again in future. So ribosome release factor will come and bind with this sequence, and it will dissociate the 30S and 50S subunit of ribosome apart. Okay, so it will kick this thing apart. So as a result of this 30S and 50S subunits are getting released from each other, what we get all these 30s and 50s subunits individually. So we get 50s recycled, 30s recycled. But remember, another factor called IF3 initiation factor 3 will come in and bind with the A site. Remember, because in the very beginning when you start this process, I've told you that from the beginning this E site is blocked with this IF3, because to prevent the any other amino acid carrying tRNA to bind with this sequence, right? So it will kick this out, and all this part are getting dissociated. So what we get now is this part in our hands, so that we can carry this process again and again. So this is a complex process. I'm telling you, it is undoubtedly a complex process, but if you learn it sequentially, it is easy, right? So we'll be studying some of the steps in detail in the future slides. Some of the steps